So Ubisoft is often considered to be the quote-unquote lesser of evils among the major AAA publishers who exploit consumers through scummy monetization schemes. But lesser of evils doesn't equate to completely innocent. There are still a lot of qualms that I do have with Ubisoft as a company. You may recall that one issue that came into the limelight was when Assassin's Creed Odyssey launched. While the game was overall pretty well received, while I would argue it's a pretty good open-world action game, all things considered, there is no denying that some of the microtransactions in the title left a sour taste. This is especially true for those non-cosmetic purchasable items like XP boosters and in-game currency boosters. As their name imply, the former increases the rate at which players gain experience to level up their character, while the latter increases the rate at which players earn money. XP boosters particularly prove to be contentious due to the fact that Assassin's Creed Odyssey's main campaign was level gated, meaning that during certain checkpoints, you had to be a certain level to further progress. Now, players who did every single side quest while completing the campaign may not have found this to be an issue, but others who did a smaller amount of side quests and focused on the main campaign did find themselves locked off from further advancing the main story, being forced to grind out hours worth of side quests to gain enough experience and enough levels to proceed onwards, which is why for those who were more invested in the core story than side missions, it felt like the experience was intentionally padded out and that progression roadblocks were intentionally set in place for no real good reason in order to strong-arm players into purchasing XP boosters that can mitigate this issue. And that's how microtransactions operate. They introduce a problem so that you have to pay for the solution, and indeed, quite a few people expressed that they felt Assassin's Creed Odyssey's progression pacing felt a lot better once the XP booster was applied. The fact of the matter is that there's simply no excuse for putting a price tag on this XP booster instead of making it an optional setting players can toggle at any point. Now, this is an old issue, so why am I bringing up XP boosters again, you ask? Well, that's because they tie into Ubisoft's latest questionable move. So about a month ago, Ubisoft released an update for Assassin's Creed Odyssey that implemented what's called a story creator mode. It's essentially a tool that allows players to design their own quests within Assassin's Creed Odyssey and put them out there for others to try out. Unsurprisingly, it didn't take long before users began to exploit this feature to create quests that essentially allow players to quickly level up by doing nothing. They'll be designed in such a way that these quests complete themselves before rewarding XP and money. So as an example, one of these custom quests might involve killing an enemy, and the mission will be designed in such a way that another NPC will do the killing as soon as the mission loads. So that's a quick completion right there. Players earn XP, and then they can run that over and over and over again. It's not particularly creative, nor is the mode being used as intended, but many figured, who freaking cares? You'd be hard-pressed to find anyone who will be peeved about using an exploit to power yourself up in a single-player game. But Ubisoft didn't see it that way, with the company taking umbrage with these kinds of quests after they caught wind of them. The following information comes from a forum post that Ubisoft published on July 10th, 2019. In this post, Ubisoft claimed that the way the story creator mode is being exploited compromises the gameplay experience for others, stating, quote, "Hey everyone, we'd like to discuss XP farming. Story creator mode was designed to be a tool for players to let their creativity and imagination run free as they build their own stories to share with others, using a modified version of the tools our own designers used to develop the quests in the game. However, since the launch of the beta, we have noticed an increasing flow of farming quests that exploit the tool to get large amounts of XP. These exploits risk jeopardizing the overall quality, integrity, and purpose of story creator mode and result in less visibility for the creative, interesting, and frankly fantastic community stories that have been published. We want to focus on rewarding creativity by highlighting quality quests, and we are working on fixes and adjustments to reduce the impact of such farming quests on the player experience. games. We are also changing story creator mode's terms of use to prevent creators from publishing these kinds of stories. We are working on the following fixes and adjustments to reduce the impact of such farming quests on the player experience, shifting the focus back to the tool's intended design and use, as well as actively combating exploits moving forward. XP farming quests will not appear in our automatic recommendation system. This includes the Hall of Fame and the trending section. Stories that are reported for exploitation or cheating will be hidden moving forward. Our terms of use will be updated to reflect the misuse of the tool. We will be sanctioning those who continue to willingly and intentionally misuse the tool. Implement further solutions with upcoming title updates. We will share more information as we near these updates. This is all such a load of horseshit. Let's get one thing straight here. Ubisoft getting on top of this has nothing to do with custom farming quests supposedly jeopardizing the overall quality, integrity, and purpose of the mode. It has nothing to do with the more creative custom missions getting less visibility. This has everything to do with the fact that Ubisoft sells XP boosters in Assassin's Creed Odyssey's marketplace, and XP farming quests essentially get in the way of potential sales. When players hit roadblocks during an Assassin's Creed Odyssey playthrough, these custom XP farming quests leave it open for players to forego spending money on the game's XP booster by simply taking advantage of these user-created missions instead. It's pretty obvious that the loss of potential microtransaction sales is the primary reason for why Ubisoft is taking such drastic measures against XP farming custom quests, as they do in fact render XP boosters being sold on the Ubisoft store completely useless. Not to mention there is little credibility to the notion that an abundance of XP farming missions give the more creative uploads less visibility. There are plenty of search options, filters, and tags that allow players to very easily find more creative and more popular quest designs that are trending, have high engagement, or have high user rating. Furthermore, there's an entire section dedicated to highlighting each week's most prominent creations, so there is no shortage of visibility for worthwhile uploads. Now look, if Assassin's Creed Odyssey was an online multiplayer title, I would totally understand why they might want to regulate XP gains. In an online multiplayer environment, every player has to be on the same playing field, balance has to be achieved for the sake of fairness, and things like cheats and exploits tangibly affect other people's experience. But I'll remind you that Assassin's Creed Odyssey is an entirely single-player experience. What you do in your Odyssey game session in no way, shape, or form affects or impacts other people's sessions, which is why the general sentiment is that in a single-player experience, people should be able to do whatever the hell they want with their game. If they want to mod it, if they want to cheat, if they want to use exploits, they should be able to do all of that without any consequences. They should just have fun however they want, because what does it ultimately matter? But Ubisoft doesn't think so. They think game developers should exert control over how players experience single-player titles. They think that players who tamper with isolated single-player game sessions should be reprimanded. The company literally threatened to sanction Assassin's Creed Odyssey players for uploading XP farming levels, which is a rather extreme measure to take for a single-player game. This is why I shudder at the idea of AAA game publishers trying to normalize live service single-player titles. The promise is that these live service single-player games will be ever-evolving and whatnot, but the reality often tends to be that these are just regular single-player games in which developers get to have more control over a player's experience and our ability to tweak parameters to our liking, all for the sake of monetization. If you ask me, this is all setting a dangerous precedent for the future of single-player games. I don't want to imagine a future in which live service elements in single-player games are commonplace, as that would leave it open for game companies to be able to threaten players who don't conform to a single-player title's monetization-centric design, who go off the beaten path to have some harmless, isolated fun with their self-contained game sessions. In the case of Assassin's Creed Odyssey, the only one who doesn't stand to benefit from these XP workarounds is Ubisoft, as they compromise the company's ability to sell a feature that should have been inherently included in the game in the first place, a player option that was intentionally stripped away from the core product to nickel-and-dime consumers. These game companies keep saying that microtransactions are optional. Ubisoft will say that buying these XP boosters are optional, and yet the second a player decides to seek out another option to gain XP, they'll begin to threaten sanctions and such. Optional my ass. Ubisoft wants players to buy XP boosters, which is why there is no other option to gain XP faster than to shell out extra cash. So don't believe in the nonsense Ubisoft is spouting here. Don't believe the notion that their intent is to foster a more creative environment for story creator mode. That's a complete lie. The studio wants to sell intentionally stripped features like XP boosters. That's all there really is to it. These are one man's thoughts and opinions on the situation. I'd love to hear what your take is on Ubisoft threatening sanctions against players who take advantage of XP exploits via the story creator mode in the comments below. With that, I would like to end this news update and discussion video. Thank you for tuning in. To be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Yong Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Yong out.